For a live debate now on Tory party divisions and Brexit, I'm now joined by Tahmid Chowdhury from the People's Challenge and Bob Lyddon from the pro-Brexit think tank Global Britain. Thanks indeed, both of you, for joining us. Tahmid, I know your organisation is not happy about Brexit at all. You'd rather not it happen at all. But Boris Johnson actually is being perfectly reasonable about this. He's saying, look, clearly Britain voted to leave. We're going to make a clean break of it. We're not going to have a transition period any longer than necessary and won't pay any more money than that's necessary to the EU. So he's actually speaking for what Britain wants.
No, I disagree. Boris Johnson is doing what Boris Johnson wants to do for his own benefit. I'm not happy about us leaving the EU. My group's not happy about us leaving the EU, but what we want is the best for the UK. And what Boris Johnson is doing is what's best for Boris, not for the UK.
Yeah, what is happening then here? Is this a leadership challenge, Bob? I mean, you're pro-Brexit. Are you pretty worried by what's happening with the incumbent government dealing with this process?
Yes, I am, because the people decided in the referendum we're going to leave the EU. Who said? Theresa May thinks we need a smooth transition. Who says? That's Theresa May's view. Boris's view, whatever you think of Boris personally, is more in tune with the referendum result. Because who talked about a 4 or 5 year transition period?
Well, isn't Philip Hammond more in tune? I mean, he's... Yeah.
But he's in tune with the Confederation of British Industry, which is multinationals, many of whom are foreign. So he's in tune with the people making a big gravy train out of the EU.
You're smiling there, Tahmid. You're not...
Well, I think Bob's made my argument for me. When we voted in the referendum, we didn't really have a clear direction of what we were voting for. Many people voted Remain for different reasons, many people voted Leave for different reasons. And it's for that reason that we can't isolate ourselves into thinking one particular view should be dominant. It's why at the end of this a couple of years of negotiations, we should revisit the question, whether that's through a referendum, whether that's through Parliament, really looking at what's best for the United Kingdom. I don't know, but we need to revisit the question because people didn't have all the information, people didn't know specifically what they're voting for. And you're right, Bob, we don't know whether Theresa May, Philip Hammond, Boris Johnson is right in what people voted for in the end.
Yeah, do you think people are actually regretting it now,
No.
Bob? Because people, we now realise the true impact of what Brexit is. And so Vince Cable, the Lib Dems, is clearly saying that people should be given another chance now we have an informed decision.
Well, he said they shouldn't be given another chance the day after the referendum. He was very clear about that. No, people made a referendum. If this referendum gets overturned, we can't ever have another one.
What's happening now with the government? Are we seeing unity, as Theresa May suggests?
Well, senior figures are united. So what? Why should we bow down to senior figures? I mean, I heard Vince Cable during the referendum campaign saying the big universities agree, Remain, big business agrees, Remain, so you lot should agree. Whenever have we lived in a deferential society where we just buy into what people of importance, supposed importance, say?
So actually what we're seeing, Tam, is democracy at play within the Conservative Party, aren't we? People speaking out and saying what they want.
Well, no, because the government has a responsibility to govern for the whole of the United Kingdom. It has a responsibility to govern in the best interests of the UK, and I don't think that's what we're seeing at the moment. I see division between the Conservative leadership, and I think that's problematic both for the party, which isn't good for the country, but also for the Brexit negotiations.
We would have seen that for any government, though, wouldn't we? I mean, this is a huge, huge challenge, even Labour, of course. I mean, we've seen divisions with Corbyn and Keir Starmer, for example, in the Labour ranks.
Absolutely. I don't think Labour would have done any better than what we're seeing at the moment. But that's not the point. What the point is that the driving force for any government in power at the moment should be what's best for the United Kingdom. And at present, we're not clear on what that is. People voted in a referendum, and I accept that, my organisation accepts that. But what isn't clear is whether people are going to be happy with that down the line. And I agree with what you were saying earlier, that actually we're already seeing those initial grumblings between people who voted Leave and people who voted Remain.
What should the government do then, Bob? If it's the EU, obviously, clearly making it very challenging, quite intransigent over this. Should we simply just say, look, we're not going to have a deal at all, we'll just go? Is that what you'd like, us to join WTO?
Well, it's one way of doing it. Yes, there are downsides, there are also upsides. It's not all disaster. But if the EU are showing that they can't be negotiated with in a sensible way by basically playing bad cop, bad cop, bad cop, what do you do?
OK, but make it absolutely clear what you want to see happen now with Brexit.
Well, I think we should get out as quickly as possible, because I think the detriments of EU membership are enormous and they haven't been debated. The tax issues, the plundering of the country's public finances by companies based in Ireland, Luxembourg, Netherlands, that hasn't even been discussed. The huge guarantee liabilities behind the debts of other member states, these haven't been openly discussed.
But so they should all be discussed after we leave, is that right? Because you're saying
No,
we should get out as soon as possible. Have we actually got time? I mean, a 2-year transition period does make sense that we have that.
Well, we could get out of those. If we left straight away, we could get out of those liabilities. Why wouldn't we?
What sort of support do you think you have as your group? Do you think people are seriously worried about Brexit now, and rather it's getting all so complicated, a bit of a tangled web, just screw the whole idea up, throw it in the bin?
Absolutely. I think the demonstrations today and over the last couple of days in Manchester illustrate that people are frustrated by what's happening. I appreciate that it's a small number out of a big population.
But a lot of those are they are Labour supporters, aren't they?
Perhaps, but I think whether they're Labour supporters or Conservative supporters, people still are having doubts about the Brexit process. And what we saw prior to the referendum is all of these, prominent voices coming out and saying that if we leave, things are going to happen, whether it's socially or to our economy. And those things are happening. They're happening right now. The IFS came out before the referendum, said 20 to 40 billion pounds are going to be plundered away if we embark on the Brexit process. And similarly, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen other organisations, the Centre for Economics and Business Research, I think, came out and said roughly the same figure. And that's a year on. So saying that it's not happening and people aren't getting frustrated about it, I think is unfair.
Well, Bob, wage squeeze at the moment.
Well, the
inflation
heckling
up,
of Jacob
the pound
Rees.
collapsing. We are suffering.
The euro's collapsed today because of the Catalonian result, which, without wanting,
experiencing growth at the moment.
Yes, because the European Investment Bank is putting in or lending to spend now 6.6% of EU GDP, and they're doing a splurge of public finance initiative type funding, the exact type that Labour says shouldn't be happening. And this is underpinning the business economy, which is buoyant, manufacturing, but the consumer side of the economy is still very weak. And the ECB, the European Central Bank, don't know what to do. Raise interest rates, reduce interest rates, get the FX rate up, get the FX rate down, lend more, stop. They don't know what to do.
Well, we're still at the early stages of negotiations at the moment, still seemingly to be a bit of a deadlock between the EU and the UK. So I think we'll probably be talking about this again in the not too distant future. Thank you very much, Bob Lyddon and Tahmid Chowdhury. Thank you
very
for joining
much.
us. Good to talk to you.